We're seeing the tokenization of the economy. This is the biggest shakeup to the money supply since the introduction of the money market fund.
That connection to the real world, right? That's not going away. I'm Niklas Kunkel, and I'm the founder of Chronicle, the largest tokenization oracle in DeFi.
I'm Greg Prisco. I'm the co-founder of M0, and we are a stablecoin infrastructure company. We build technology for issuers, stablecoin builders, and liquidity providers. Nick and I were both at MakerDAO in the very early days. Nick actually is one of the few people that precedes me.
I think we built a very good working relationship, and I think focus on just rigorous security, right, and just rigorous diligence is something that I think you brought to M0 and I brought to Chronicle. We are attesting that the reserves are there. So when someone would like to mint some stable coins, we are the ones that are ensuring, right, that the every stable coin that's being minted is actually backed by valid reserves. And then same, in reverse, right, when tokens are burned, right, we are the ones attesting, okay, this token has been burned, right? Now the underlying, reserves can kind of be released.
When we first started, you have to keep in mind, there were no regulators in the stablecoin space. It was the Wild West. When we designed the first protocol, we needed to essentially build the regulator into the governance mechanism. And as part of that construction, we realized, okay, well, if we're going to have issuers taking on risk from other issuers, then we're going to need independent third parties that protect the issuers from each other. Since then, since the Genius Act passed, we basically have been put in a position where not only do issuers not want to take the risk of each other, they legally can't. So every issuer in the system now is kind of isolated from a risk perspective, but it's no longer serving a hard technical requirement because the issuers now are using it for their own needs. So I don't see it becoming an industry standard in the sense that a third-party oracle could have a veto. I think for the foreseeable future, you're going to need these very high-quality connections between institutions and the token liabilities that they generate.
I think that touches on something really interesting because, when oracles kind of started in 2016, 2017, right? If you said the word oracle, they were doing something very, very different than they are today. As soon as you step away from like crypto native assets and need kind of this tethering to what we in crypto call the real world, in hindsight, that's kind of a funny term, right? It makes us all look
I maintain I coined that term, by the way. I don't know if you know
that. It makes us all look like a couple of closet crypto kids or something, right? But that connection to the real world, right? The role of the oracle has really evolved, and the types of context and types of metadata that it's now delivering, that's not going away. There is always going to be a need for an oracle. It's not an if, it's just a how. A really big problem in the industry is that we rely on periodic attestations, or in some cases no attestations, or in some cases self-attestations, all of which are relatively worthless. There needs to be a shift. I would like to see users demanding that. I would like to see anyone who is a capital allocator or a kind of lender demanding these things. Simply put, if you're looking at a quarterly, a weekly, a monthly snapshot, you have no idea what has happened in between, right? If you let me borrow, $100 million based off a snapshot that is a week old, great, I now know a way that I can make $100 million, right? It's just more of a security theater than actually financial security.
I think we should separate from a user's perspective. You need the regulated audits, but you also should have more frequent transparency. There's no excuse anymore, again, in our day and age, given how connected everything is on the internet with your APIs or tokens or whatever, to not provide that level of transparency into your balance sheet. Uh, it's hard though, because users don't demand it. They don't care till it's too late, or they can't seem to differentiate between I want transparency. I don't need a daily audit from the most expensive accounting firm in the world. But I think it's also not as black and white because there's different levels of granularity you can have in attestations. Even in regular Wall Street funds, like I'm comfortable with the daily NAV, and then I'll go to the issuer's website and see the actual composition of the portfolio at that point in time.
If you look at a e-commerce retailer like Amazon, why doesn't Amazon have their own stablecoin? Why doesn't Walmart or, to a lesser degree, Target have their own stablecoin? I kind of liken it to like when Venmo came out, right? A lot of people have just kind of accumulated balances on their Venmo wallet, from people paying them back for a dinner. And then one day you log in, you're like, oh, I have like a couple $100 in here, right? And all that time, right? PayPal has been getting to earn off of that idle cash kind of sitting there. So I really think that's kind of the move you see is like from like the retailers that are just like broadly accessible and like readily used by everyone.
Also, I want to challenge the definition of a stablecoin a bit. And we just launched a stablecoin for MoneyGram. And MoneyGram is doing a very interesting thing. The normal MoneyGram flow is that they take money in city A, they put the cash into their systems, and it outputs as local currency in city B. What this allows you to do is like you can put money in city A, get a stablecoin balance, send that stablecoin balance down to wherever it needs to go, and now that recipient can hold the stablecoin. So the recipient just basically got access to dollars in a way that they didn't have access before. Because before that, MoneyGram had no way of letting them hold those dollars in the destination country.
Something like DAI never really had a direct to dollar redeemability. It had to piggyback off of USDC, right? I think there was even like a meme at one point that DAI was just like wrapped USDC because Maker had become the largest holder of USDC. And I think that shifts back because like the requirement of being able to redeem into physical dollars kind of goes away. And I think like the catalyst for that is going to be when certain tokenized assets are more natively issued on chain.
We're seeing the tokenization of the economy. I mean, maybe it's too like finance nerd for the average person to get excited about, but it's exciting. This is the biggest shakeup to the money supply since the introduction of the money market fund. Like it's gonna be a pretty interesting ride from here. And like the only thing I know for sure is that in 10 years there's going to be a lot more things that are tokenized than are today, and that's going to improve so many different systems.
How do you make something like an Oracle boring, right? How do you make it so boring, right, that nobody even thinks about it anymore? If we can get to that point, then I think Chronicle's done really, really well.
There's still a lot of utility for stablecoins in these, let's, as Nick put them, like true crypto applications. The idea that agents can have wallets and different protocols can interact in atomic and decentralized ways, like that's still interesting, and it's gonna be something. So I think the market's gonna just continue to grow.
I think right now we're in a relatively unique period in that um, the narratives have actually had to like prove themselves. With respect to what I mentioned earlier, right? Perps with prediction markets, right? We even saw it with like Pump.Fun, like creating the industrialization of meme coins, right? Of they somehow captured that lightning in a bottle and packaged it up in some infrastructure, right? And we're able to kind of supercharge that from a monetization point of view. So a lot of the time, it's not even just like wrong idea, right idea, right? The timing is everything. And what I'm kind of seeing right now, right, is that momentum is just going to continue.